And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go out to the recovering Dan Stein from FAIR, who's joining us on Injured Reserve today. Good morning, sir.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
Every time I am watching the DACAs, the Dreamers, and everything else, I think of all the work that you and the folks at FAIR have been doing to keep America safe and secure and to, secure the sovereignty of this nation. That the headlines aren't getting any bigger than they are now.
Well, you're being very nice to me this morning, and I appreciate that because I've been nursing a bad back after a fall. And there's nothing about what's going on the Hill that makes me feel like, we can rely on some of these GOP senators to have the backbone to stand up to recalcitrant Democrats who are resisting after, we feel Trump has more than gone halfway in offering an amnesty to 2 million people in exchange for a common sense reform that would fix chain migration and the whole concept of chain migration, nepotistic family preferences that have all kinds of problems, which have been identified for 30 years from the Hesburgh Commission to the Jordan Commission, constantly identified as not a manageable process. And yet the Democrats are so invested in re-engineering the electorate, changing the demographic base of the country to enlarge what they believe is their future political base, that they're not willing to even discuss the matter. And it doesn't make any sense, Kevin, to actually think about, or first of all, it doesn't make any sense to talk about amnesty per period. I mean, we send a signal all around the world to people that we're not going to ever enforce these laws. And even a 2 million person amnesty would hamstrung immigration law enforcement for years. And there's all kinds of reasons why, as a procedural matter, we shouldn't be talking about amnesty. You should be talking about the things that Trump campaigned on. And about 3 or 4 major ones seem to have survived through this new framework in the State of the Union. Fixed chain migration, essentially emphasize nuclear families, spouse, unmarried, minor children. Pretty much that's it. And then move to a merit-based system. And then, of course, a lot of interior law enforcement, ideally E-Verify, but that's not really in the framework. Get rid of this random lottery program. I mean, so much of the immigration program is on autopilot, chain migration, the lottery. So much of it is on outside the control of the American people because it's the immigrants themselves who are deciding who gets to come after them. And, there's so many really good arguments for why to eliminate chain migration. It doesn't matter whether you're a farmer in Idaho who's looking for, lower cost foreign labor, guest workers, what have you, or somebody who's a high-tech employer who wants to bring in high-tech foreign workers or whatever those reasons are. Chain migration does not make sense in a post-industrial superpower economy. And if we would fix the system, it would make immigration affordable, it would make it manageable, it would make it more responsive to America's changing labor market needs, and it would give it back to the American people the basic right to decide how many people are coming in this country every year.
Our great friend Dan Stein joining us from FAIR here at KIDO Talk Radio. So, Dan, what do you make of it's so funny how the world has changed? John Kelly says, look, the president has been very generous, that people that were too lazy or too afraid to sign up. And then you have on NBC News a little millennial dreamer going, well, I don't like how he treated me, and I don't think that's fair. And you're going, one is the chief of staff to the president talking about real policy. Another one, is somebody talking about his feelings being hurt. They're not equal.
What we used to call the media, or even, I don't even think the mainstream media is not a proper term anymore for what's happened to what used to be called news gathering organizations. I mean, they clearly are not serving that purpose any longer. They provide entertainment at a very low wattage level for a particular segment of people who are deluded into, Trump loathing, derangement syndrome. And that's all it is. And it's encouraging, unfortunately, the Democrats to persist in taking these infantile, juvenile, non-cooperating positions. I mean, the point is, if you're going to negotiate, you have to sit down and recognize that you have to trade off. Sometimes you got to give to get something. And the Democrats in the very beginning of this whole process have said, we don't care if this was Trump's marquee issue. We don't care if he mentioned it at every campaign stop. We don't care if he promised a wall. We don't care if he promised interior reforms, E-Verify, lowering immigration. We don't care anything about that, stopping criminal aliens, removing criminal aliens. None of that matters to us. It wasn't the fourth question in the fifth debate, right, to to somebody whose name we don't even remember, like Carla Fiorini, about immigration in this campaign. This was the pillar, along with trade, of the entire presidential campaign. Arguably, if Trump had come out for a 2 million person amnesty sometime around the New Hampshire primary, somebody else would have gotten the nomination, either Rubio, Jeb Bush, or Cruz. But here we are now. Let's take it up to where we are right now, Kevin. Today, right now, we are at a situation where if you talked to me, I'm probably at the beginning of 2017. I said what 2017 needs to start out with is that the administration needs to say, okay, I have a mandate. I'm going to draft, the White House is going to submit 2 legislative proposals, identical proposals, one to Chuck Grassley as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, one to Bob Goodlatte as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House, and they're going to be identical, and they're going to contain our framework. Now, back then, it probably would have contained the elements of the framework we're talking about, but there would have been maybe an 800,000, basically what the Goodlatte bill has now, which is to let them have 3-year renewing work permits. No path to citizenship for 800,000 under DACA, under Obama's illegal activity. And then it would have had the rest of the framework. And then you move those 2 bills first through the House, because, Kevin, we have seen for the last 30 years trying to initiate immigration legislation in the Senate doesn't work. Why? Because 6 or 7 senators sitting in a room behind closed doors, smoking cigars with spittoons, can't decide the immigration policy for the United States. All right? They pass a bill in the Senate, and the House has no interest in it. So the point is the House is closer to the people. So you start in the House, you let the House do its work, move it through, right? Paul Ryan working with the White House. Then the Senate takes up what the House passed, ideally working very closely to the original White House framework. All right, now, all that is starting to finally happen now. All right, today, all right, we already have the Goodlatte bill, which Ryan has said he will not move to the floor unless Trump says he'll sign it. Well, okay, I'm sure Trump would say if that bill passed the way he's been introduced, he'd sign it. It's very close to his priorities. It's not as generous with an amnesty. There's no real amnesty. There's just, again, extending work permits. Now Senators Lankford and Cornyn and Grassley are actually drafting a proposal similar to the Goodlatte bill that mirrors the White House framework that Trump articulated in the State of the Union. But my question, Kevin, is this. Why have these Republican senators been screwing around with people like Dick Durbin and Lindsey Graham, who's a Republican, I suppose, but why have they been wasting all these months, critical months, trying to find a renewed version of the Gang of Six, the Gang of Eight, the Gang of Thugs in the Senate, as if somehow that's supposed to be the place to initiate the legislative process? Instead, what we finally see now is the Senate group, the leadership group, actually mirroring the House proposal and the 2 sides coming together on the assumption, as I think anybody can assume, that the Democrats are really not interested in border security, limiting immigration, the rule of law, or anything else, right? I mean, they've made it clear. So here we are saying we're setting this thing up as a major campaign issue for 2018 at this point.
Well, everything is a campaign issue with them. Dan Stein joining us from FAIR, Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. Now, Dan, is there a difference between the DACAs and the Dreamers? Because we hear so much about it. It's darn right confusing. All I know is it's unconstitutional, and Obama let it happen, and it should be coming to an end.
Mm-hmm. Well, you remember that after 9/11, I mean, look, 3 or 4 days before 9/11, George Bush was standing in the Rose Garden with Vicente Fox.
Yes.
Who, by the way, has turned out to be a real horse's patouche, but anyway. And they're standing in the Rose Garden and they're promising an amnesty. I mean, people remember that, but this was basically September 7 of 2001. 9/11 happens. Obviously, the whole political dynamics of the immigration issue change for the next 4 or 5 years. Well, during all that change, people who are in the amnesty saddle, Dick Durbins, they decide, all right, we're not getting any amnesty through in this environment. Well, let's try to identify a sympathetic group of people as the camel's nose. And I know I'm getting to the age where a lot of your listeners might not remember the term camel's nose in the 10th, but it's an old term. I guess it comes out of Middle Eastern culture, but once the camel's nose, that's how you get some, that's the wedge issue. So they said, we're going to define it as these sympathetic people under the age of 21 who were brought here as juveniles. And how about we give them some kind of a limited amnesty? So that was the original DREAM Act. They had a PR firm. They did it polling. Dick Durbin and the Democrats, they said, here, let's try to come up with a sympathetic group and get some acceptance for the idea of amnesty for this subgroup. And the DREAM group has been proposed in legislation now going back to 2002 in various iterations. And of course, this group has gotten older, right? And once Obama came in 2008 and 9, the Democrats controlled all three the branches of Congress and the White House. They didn't pass it during those 2 years. They were too busy with health care. And of course, they lost control in Congress in 2010. But the DREAM Act is a huge, large group of people now, including several million people that are up to the age of like 36 and 37 now, based on the date of when they entered and the age when they entered the country. So it's just a growing population, an amorphous population. It's a PR gambit. And people need to be very clear. Your listeners should understand. The Democrats from the very beginning have been using the so-called dreamers, these illegal alien dreamers, as a bludgeon to try to replicate with Hispanic American voters the same political loyalty the Democrats have enjoyed with African American voters for 45, 50 years. That reflexive, take for granted, go into the voting booth, pull the party ticket kind of voting that lets you be taken for granted. And there are Republican operatives, generally the ones who work for the chief labor wing of the Republican establishment, who always push this idea that Hispanic voters can actually do better than say they have with African American voters. And in fact, that's true, of course. And in fact, if you look at Republican candidates who've done well with Hispanic voters, it has nothing to do with their immigration position. I mean, yeah, George W. did pretty well, but Trump did really well with Hispanic voters too. So you would think that would go into the thinking of these professional operatives who work for Lindsey Graham and people like that. I'm thinking of people they're professional political consultants who dominate Washington, who work for the Koch brothers and people like that, the Bush wing of the Republican Party. Anyway, the point is, this thinking dominates, and the Democrats have a field day using the so-called Dream Kids as a political bludgeon with the Republicans to try to control this debate. Well, Obama repeatedly said during his first term he had no constitutional authority to unilaterally declare an amnesty by giving away work documents and our public benefits to people with no right to be in the country. He kept telling his base that. But as you see today, the Democrats have unleashed a political monster, right? I mean, a bunch of people who are here illegally with nothing to gain, everything to gain and nothing to lose by trying to intimidate legislators. People like Chuck Schumer, people like Nancy Pelosi, people like Dick Durbin. They get off a plane, they go to town meetings, they get ridiculed and harassed by these people here illegally. I mean, our elected representatives, right, getting illegally harassed by people here illegally, right? Oh, getting harassed by people here who have no right to be in the country. But the Democrats are basically creating this very treacherous political tactic, and doing so, at the expense of the rule of law, our sovereignty, and even the legitimacy of our political system at some level. They're so determined to try to get these people to the voting booth by whatever means necessary, while at the same time refusing to actually amend or reform the back-end selection process to replicate this low-skilled, poorly educated flow of people coming into the country and voting Democrat because they like the Democrat message on transfer payments. And so the DACA group. Okay, the DACA. Sorry, I'm taking so long. I'm on painkillers. The DACA group is a subgroup of the Dreamers. This is the group of people that Obama changed his mind right before the 2012 election, and he said, "Okay, I decided I'm wrong. I really do have the constitutional authority to give unlimited numbers of people American jobs and benefits by the stroke of a pen, executive order." It wasn't even that; it was a memo. And so this 800,000 DACA people are simply the people who actually applied and got this benefit under Obama's illegal action. So when the Democrats talk about a DACA fix, what they're really saying is they want to go back to Obama. They want to ratify legally Obama's illegal activity for no reason other than the fact that Obama broke the law and these other people broke the law, and that somehow the rest of us have an obligation to accommodate all these people who broke the law, because some of them have done well in high school.
Amazing. Our great friend Dan Stein. Let's talk about this from FAIR. Final question for you. We appreciate you coming in on Injured Reserve today. What do you expect to happen? What should we be working on here in Idaho for us?
Well, I mean, I can break some news. I mean, FAIR's launching a seven-figure national ad campaign in furtherance of the components of Trump's campaign promises that the American people support. I mean, assuming that the president still stands behind the framework of his original campaign, I mean, these television ads, along with a very aggressive and independent of that digital campaign as well, are designed to build a marching army of Americans in support of the Trump administration's effort to try to end chain migration, get the border secure, build the wall, basically stop illegal immigration once and for all, worksite enforcement, and the other things that were part of his plan. So, FAIR has had hundreds of thousands of Americans. I mean, the most important thing your listeners need to know is you're not alone. I mean, so many Americans say they don't understand. I mean, it seems like there's this polarization in Washington, but most of my friends, they don't want to talk about it or it's controversial. Trust me, the way you feel about immigration is fine. It's right. We all love the idea of immigration, but we love America more. And there's a right way and there's a wrong way and there's an appropriate level. And then there's a level where people are getting injured, hurt, displaced, murdered, whatever you want to call it. And it's not working for the American people. And we've gotten way past that level. We all need to work together to find ways to reduce the overall size of the immigration flow, to ensure that every immigrant comes legally, that they have incentives to respect the law, and that if you don't play by the rules, you don't play the game. Our website has a sign up. You can be part of the fair fight for true immigration reform. If you haven't already signed up, I mean, Kevin Miller is one of the Legion, the amazing group of patriotic American talk hosts who represent some of the finest civic participants in America in an industry that is still very relevant, even in this world of digital. Some of America's greatest activists and civic participants are people like the people who listen to your show, Kevin.
Well, Dan, we appreciate you. By the way, I was telling our old friend Bob at your place, I loved the campaign on the radio, looking forward to the TV and the digital. Very effective and way to break out from the noise. Dan, quickly, if people would love to be a part of the fair fight, what can they do?
I'll go to fairus.org. FAIRUS, F-A-I-R-U-S, fairus.org, and you'll see where you can sign up. We give you the action alerts, phone action, doesn't cost a dime. Obviously, it's great to have a little money to, pay out, keep the lights on, but your participation is not conditioned on that. We'd love to have you help out because right now, this may be one of the couple of last times that the American people really are going to be able to stop what's happening. So now's the time. Oh, baby of mine. Remember that song? Now's the time, oh, baby of mine.
Dan, you take care, and thank you for your great work, sir.
Thanks, Kevin. Talk to you soon.
Okay, our great friend Dan Stein joining us. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. And coming up, probably we're going to release this early next week or late this week, was just an incredible story that I stumbled onto yesterday at the College of Idaho. And it was just a story that you might have heard about on Channel 7 or you might have seen on the Today Show many years ago. But it was about Noah and Lucas. They are young children. Lucas is a young man that's in a wheelchair, and his brother Noah, who's, I believe, now 12, they do triathlons. And I believe on Facebook they're called the Triathlon Brothers. And it was amazing last night. I'm hanging out with the Yote swim team. In addition to that, the basketball team, thanks to Coach Garson and Marty Holly for letting me hang out there, just shooting some video for my second occupation. And just a heartwarming story. And so many times we have the negative. But these Triathlon Brothers are just amazing. We'll be having that for you coming up on KIDOTalkRadio.com. And before we continue on here, an amazing story that is blowing up on social media. We'll share that with you in a minute. First, traffic and weather together.
1-year-old Lucas Warren of Dalton, Georgia, is the 2018 Gerber baby. Corporate executives at Gerber Baby Foods say his contagious smile won them over. The company has been picking Gerber babies for 91 years. Lucas is their first with Down syndrome. His photo was chosen out of more than 140,000 submitted. He'll be featured in the company's social media postings. Lucas will receive $50,000 But his mom, Courtney Warren, says she hopes this will increase acceptance of special needs kids. Jack Callahan, Fox News.
KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you, Jack. What a blessing. And if you've seen the Gerber baby on Facebook, what a beautiful, beautiful boy. And when we talk about the special needs, when we talk about Down syndrome, truly, those folks are so blessed with those children, so blessed with unconditional love. And it's something that we need to highlight. And when we talk about our society morphing in a way, sometimes we opine that we've become so sensitive. But, you know, to highlight the good things, good for Gerber for doing that. Good, good, good. Some good news rolling on. Coming up, we're going to go get some bad news, and that's from Washington, D.C. We'll see what Rachel Sutherland from KIDO Talk Radio, Fox News Radio, has to say about that. First, let's find out what's happening here in the Treasure Valley. Good morning, Maggie. And we never want to be accused of the bait or the switch, but Rachel, she won't be available for us. So we will continue on. We'll talk a little bit about the government shutdown, but something that Nevada lawmakers are taking a look at. Now, Idaho lawmakers, by the way, I write about this at KIDOTalkRadio.com, the issue about repealing the grocery tax. State officials are selling us this largest tax cut ever. We'll talk about this with Senator Hagedorn, who will join us in studio. He's a candidate for lieutenant governor. Coming up, we'll also talk about Meridian and how big it's booming. Mayor Tammy will join us in the 8 o'clock hour. But this is something that lawmakers in Nevada are looking at, and maybe we should take a look at it here. Let's take a listen.
2 New York State lawmakers proposing a bill to change the packaging and look of colorful detergent capsules to make them look less appealing. This amid concerns over the Tide Pod Challenge, which has sparked kids and teens to share clips eating the pods. Tide brand's owner, Procter & Gamble, has been working with YouTube to remove the videos. Assemblywoman Aravela Simotas and Senator Brad Hoylman are urging detergent makers to make the pods uniform in color, saying the pods look like candy and are a risk to young kids and older adults with dementia who may mistake them for something edible. The bill would add the capsules to the list of hazardous household products and require packaging to be child-resistant. I'm Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
Now, I have to admit, I like the feel of the Tide Pods, but I don't know if they're more effective or more economical than just buying the detergent, than good old Whisk or the generic stuff, right? I mean, marketing is there really a difference between the detergents? And as Ray Amaya and I were talking about moments ago, I mean, people are being stupid. And why in the world would anybody eat a Tide Pod? So they can be famous or infamous on YouTube? You know, we pride ourselves, and we're blessed to have the freedom here at KIDO Talk Radio, where I would allude to this. No one has ever said you can't talk about God. You can't talk about Jesus Christ. You can't talk about your faith. But the idea, and this is why we need to come together and bring more people in to pray, is that if we're going to live in a world where getting 100 or 10,000 hits on YouTube gives you some type of currency or credibility, then we need to pray more. We need to hug the children more. We need to adopt more children. We need to go to the Boys and Girls Club. You know, those kids aren't doing these dumb things. I'm going to make an assumption, and I will raise my hand, and I will own my crown. We know what happens when you assume. But if you're having first world problems, as we talk about, that you have a home, you have a good school, you're not getting shot at, you have food on your table, you have an opportunity to make something of yourself, and then you get into the, well, I don't haves. Well, I don't have this, I don't have that. You got a lot of blessings there, buckaroo. But why in the world, to quote the infamous Lawrence Miller, my dad, Kevin, if you had a brain, you'd be dangerous. So now we have manufacturers and we have YouTubes conforming to this. Look, maybe make it taste bad. I don't know. Why in the world would anybody value this? And it's amazing with young people today. We did a YouTube, and gosh knows we've done amazing things here. We've walked from Haley to Boise. We've gone to Iraq. The most successful YouTube that we've done here, which earned me an incredible amount of credibility in the 12 to 24 male demographic and the 18 to 34 male demographic, because when I think of men 12 to 8 or 34, I think of good old roly-poly, mamby-pamby, pudgy, pear-shaped Kevin Miller. Or is it Bell pear-shaped? Anyway, and it was about the eclipse. And I said, you're all a bunch of dopes for watching the eclipse. Yeah, I was the ambassador for the eclipse. But because it was the right moment at the right time, 25,000 YouTube hits. People go, oh, Kevin Miller, you're blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, no, I'm not. But why in the world? I mean, are we, and this goes into something deep that, again, you're not going to get on your typical talk show or your typical radio show, but we do embrace faith. We try to honor our faith. And I mean, are these children, are they so hungry for love that they want to be the next Justin Bieber? Hey, 100,000 hits on YouTube because I swallowed a Tide Pod. And now we're going to have to adjust the whole things because people are stupid. Where are the role models? Where are the parents? Huh? Can you fix stupid? Irresponsible? Well, Kevin, we're all young and stupid, but not to eat laundry detergent. Coffee grounds, yes. Laundry detergent, no. Cindy in Caldwell, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller.
Hey, Kevin. No, in a nation where many are foolish, biblically it says flee a fool. And when you're so into yourself with the next best sensational whatever, where you think you're going to be America's next best idol, what does one expect? But what I'm finding on the opposite is, and I'm going to speak to the guys, I don't know if I saw any girls, but you were over with the Yotes. Well, Kevin Miller, you got to get your camera ready because they're back in town. The baseball team, the College of Idaho baseball team, they are back on the 17th, February 17th at this slam dunk, gorgeous new little stadium. That's February 17th at 12 noon, the baseball team. Nobody's doing anything except hopefully cleaning their uniforms appropriately, but that doesn't surprise me at all, what's happening out in America. And good for you and Lars Larson last night. Speaking to Gerber, Johnny Erickson, Todd, I believe you have a little clip from her. Worked in her camp in Bon Clark in North Carolina with children with all kinds of disabilities. And isn't it a blessing that my sister in the Lord, Sarah Palin, also chose 90% of the babies in America that are identified with Down syndrome or something that someone thinks, I believe they train us, to be kind and loving these children. But she chose to have a baby that has just one little thing is off. And in our bodies, you can have lots of things with your DNA that may not be exactly right, but good for Gerber. Instead of announcing in a prideful way like in Iceland, where nobody's born with Down syndrome because they'll just abort their babies. 90% of the Americans still do too, but good for Gerber. I had a little baby in Bon Clark and had every anomaly you could think of. The mother was a lovely Catholic lady with 6 children. The baby had been 20 times to emergency room with a whole other syndrome. And in those camps, hopefully you can have Johnny on someday, there was such a joy and peace knowing that, one day these kids will all be restored. But I think children like that teach us a lot. And I can assure you, I was just blessed that you and Lars picked up on that beautiful story. And hopefully someday, just throwing this out, you call my friend Johnny Erickson Tana. She's got 5 camps for people with disabilities and things. And just keep speaking and talking to the good. And bless my sister, Sarah Palin, every time. I just saw a picture of her and that baby. So thanks, Kevin. Thanks for also balancing this whole crazy world with people that still stand for righteousness.
Cindy, God bless. Thank you.
God bless you, Kevin. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. So, again, we're going back and forth concerning the government shutdown. We'll get your thoughts, again, on the goodness going on in the world. And then you have these kids that are, swallowing the Tide Pods. Whatever happened to homework, right? Or going out and playing. And, if there's a disinformation campaign, it has to be stopped. Coming up.
After filing felony charges against Manuel Orrego Zavala, Marion County prosecutor Democrat Terry Curry also blasted President Trump and others, accusing him of politicizing the case amid the national immigration debate. The president on Twitter Tuesday called Edwin Jackson and Jeffrey Monroe's deaths one of many preventable tragedies. Critics would also argue that Orrego Zavala, an illegal immigrant, is an example of what's wrong with immigration policies. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
And there we have it at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. A man who was deported a few times, killing 2 people. Shouldn't have been on the road, shouldn't have been in this country, but they attack the person that calls out the illegal alien criminals. More on that in a minute. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And by the way, big ups to everybody working outside today. Now, most of us were inside, got our little cozy coffee. Maybe we're doing some work. Oh, I'm playing with the keyboard. Ooh, that's a lot of work. But to the people that are working physically, I was driving around, because that's all I do is drive around. Driving around, stumbling around, trying to find my way into work today, as usual. And I was looking over, what is that, Broadway? Yeah, Broadway. The Albertsons on Broadway. No, not that one. The one by the McDonald's, by the Burger King. You ever notice that everything is in relation to fast food restaurants, my geographical points? Anyway, I'm watching this. Maybe are they building a new Albertsons or expanded thing? They're building something over there. And it's 4:30 in the morning, and they've got lights on, and you have people building things right now. Duh, Kevin Miller. Maybe if you got out of your little boy in the bubble world, there are a lot of people that are working. But I go, my goodness gracious. Those people need a tip of the hat or something. We always, we get so self-absorbed with ourselves. Well, I work a lot. Well, what did you do? Well, I shot some photos last night. Ooh, really? That must have been physically demanding. Well, yes, and then I drove home. But at 580-5436, to all those folks, and to the people working on the roads, especially in downtown Boise, oh, my goodness gracious, in downtown Caldwell, oh, my we're reconfiguring everything, right? I digress at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. But big ups to everybody who's working. Back to this issue involving the illegal immigrant who's been charged by the Department of Justice, rightfully so.
Manuel Orrego Zavala, an illegal immigrant, twice deported, pleads not guilty to 4 felony counts, accused of drunk driving.
So, twice deported. How many counts of felony drinking and driving? Kills 2 people. Kills an Indianapolis Colts player who was on the side of the road. And here's the tough thing about this. He had a person come over and be a good Samaritan. And he was killed. We don't want to judge because we don't want to be called hateful names, xenophobic, racist, bigot. But if you're not going to deport people that shouldn't be here, that are criminals that kill people, then what is it that we're holding on to? Well, I just hope it doesn't happen to me. It does. This is what Donald Trump is fighting for.
And hitting and killing Colts linebacker Edwin Jackson.
Pardon me, Jeff Manasso at KIDO Talk Radio. I actually heard a reporter yesterday or 2 days ago on the White House press briefing defending MS-13. Well, really, they don't do much. Oh, they just cut people's heads off and kill them. Like, they either kill you before or cutting off your head kills you. But regardless of that, we have real Americans that Donald Trump, as imperfect as he may be to some, he's telling people the danger here. We had Obama and Bush just wanting to give people a hug and a gummy bear.
And Jackson's Uber driver, Jeffrey Monroe, along I-70 in Indianapolis early Sunday. Police say Orrego Zavala fled but was later captured, that his blood alcohol content was nearly 3 times the legal limit. and that he was also driving without a license. He remains jailed in Marion County with an immigration hold also placed on him. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
You know, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, why are we dealing with the illegals that are here? If you're deported, you need to go. Well, they're not all bad. Tell that to the family of those two that were killed by this guy. And we see it in other states. Thank God it hasn't happened here, where you've had these criminals, these notorious people that have no respect for a country. Look, if you're not going to, is anybody going to have a respect for your home if you don't have a door that works? People just come in all the time and hang out? Think about that for a minute. It is 6:55 KIDO Talk Radio. And I'm Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Don't forget, Senator Hagedorn will join us very soon. We'll get his thoughts on the legislative session, stand your ground, the grocery tax, the largest tax cut, allegations of cronyism, and the end of Governor Otter, plus his campaign for lieutenant governor. Looking forward to talking to Senator Hagedorn, a champion of the veterans issues, a veteran himself, a big supporter of the Wycan Warriors. So we'll have him coming in. And I think the last time we talked to him on the air was several years ago, probably in the first or second year of this program. But we're looking forward to reuniting with him, having a good one. In addition to that, you don't really ever have to worry about the state of Idaho shutting down, right? Have we ever come close to a government shutdown? Maybe it was in 2009. Was it 2009 or 10 where the state actually had the tax returns were late just because of the recession? How soon we forget about that. Remember that we were running out of money for the unemployment. And this is, Idaho had a healthy rainy day fund, but they had to float, I think, the tax returns for like 3 or 4 months. Very different today. And, we're going to get into that with Senator Hagedorn. We'll ask him, hey, are we doing what most consumers do at the state level? Well, what do you mean, Kevin Miller? Well, when we're in trouble, we do the big Dave Ramsey. We save more, spend less, start investing in everything else. We get rid of our debt, and we're good little Dave Ramseyites. And then all of a sudden, what happens next? Whoops. Uh-oh. What do? We start running up the debt because we've got more money running in. Really? More money coming in? So are we making the same mistake? Because we're spending a blank load of money. That's coming up. Plus, back to the whole state of Idaho thing, I don't think we've ever had to worry about the state shutting down. But what about the federal government? Everybody's saying, Liberal Steve yesterday, shut it down, shut it down. Well, that's easy for you to say, Bunky. Somehow there's got to be a better way. And maybe that happens in 2018. Maybe it'll be another wave election. Well, we're looking forward to spending another hour, maybe another 2 hours if we're lucky with you. Blessed to be part of your day. Kevin Miller here on your home for Fox News on the radio in the Treasure Valley, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.